Spiritual Healing is considered by many to be the worst death album ever, which makes no sense at all because every fucking song on it's awesome, the production is amazing, the performances are some of the best performances from the band, and it even has classic songs on it. I don't know what I'm missing here. I've heard some arguments that like it's just a continuation of the sound of Leprosy, but I would argue that's a good thing because Leprosy's style was awesome, but this album is like that but more refined. The production's better, the performances are better, it's more on point. And then I hear some people say something about like the vocals being off time or something like that, which makes no sense because the vocals aren't off time. And even if they were, it's death metal, so who cares? But for me, this album is fucking perfect because it mixes really just enough technical and melodic songwriting with just enough heavy, blisteringly catchy riffs and catchy choruses. To me, it's almost like the Rust in Peace of death metal because it's so technical in all the right ways, but not in too many ways. They don't try to sound like a prog band like they do on later albums. They play their very minimalistic, heavy death metal style with a little bit of a proggy twist in some areas, and it just makes everything perfect. There's just enough of everything. Like the middle sections are almost sort of proggy because they have really melodic sections and dueling between the guitars that give it almost a proggy edge. There's even one song that even has like a little proggy drum breakdown, but it's kept for just enough time where it can go back to some catchy shit. It never loses your attention. It's not a boring moment on this whole album. Even the slow doomier sections, which are my least favorite parts of any death album, are over very quickly. Each section bleeds into the other very perfectly with a flowing progression, and it doesn't feel like a pieced together mess like the song Choke On It. And the album came out in 1990, the same year as Rust in Peace, ironically, and I consider this to be like the Rust in Peace of death metal. The artwork is an absolute classic from them, the last one to be painted by Ed Repka, because it shows a priest or pastor slapping some very obviously sick or mentally challenged man in the face while everyone's obviously screaming praise Jesus. Now, Spiritual Healing is also a death metal album that I would actually, and this is what really made me realize how great this album was. If I were to recommend you a death metal album to check out if you're trying to get into death metal, I would say this. Some people for some reason say The Sound of Perseverance, but that's not what death metal really is about. It's just kind of like a weird turn for death metal. This is old school style death metal with the most refined production and performances that are very, very easy to get into. There's nothing really jarring here except for maybe the vocals, but they add enough reverb to Chuck's vocals that it doesn't even sound bad. It actually sounds pretty good, like a really good thrash vocal. Now the lineup is probably my second favorite, if not maybe my favorite death lineup from them. They have Bill Andrews on drums, who gives an incredible drum performance. Right away on the song Genetic Reconstruction, he's the one that does that crazy drum proggy breakdown that I absolutely adore. And you have Terry Butler on bass, who does a pretty good job. He's not too noticeable like some of their other bass players that they get, but he's alright for sure. But man, the icing on the cake is motherfucking James Murphy, an incredible, incredible lead guitar player that gives Chuck a run for his money. And a lot of people give Chuck credit for being an incredible guitarist. Me too, he's one of my favorites. But James is like the only guitarist that Death has ever had that made Chuck look like nothing. This guy would bust out crazy technical, but like really melodic and catchy solos all over the place. Look at the solo on Altering the Future that he rips out. It's just so damn catchy. And then the lead dueling with James, especially James, you could tell he like wrote that section. And then along with Chuck and the solo section of Low Life is one of my favorite Death moments ever. But even though this lineup was so good, it would not last because a lot of tensions, especially with this lineup happening. I believe this was the most pissed off Chuck has ever gotten. Because you can see in like interviews of the Human Era, they ask him questions about the last lineup and he talks very, very unkindly about this lineup. He sacked James Murphy like right after for some reason. I think he was like fighting with Chuck all the time. And they were supposed to go on tour for this album, like all over Europe, but Chuck didn't want to do it because he thought it was horribly planned. So Terry and Bill did it without him and got like 2 replacement people. Chuck got so pissed he fired them right away and got into like a legal battle with them. So that was the end of that lineup. And then to one of my favorite lineups from them. It just sounds so tight and in the pocket throughout this entire album. And let's just talk about the track listing. I don't get why people think this album is so weak. There's so many great songs. And the lyrics, of course, in this album are fantastic as well. They're way more intellectual and they're very, very, very 90s because it's just taking a look at society and what was going on at the time as opposed to like death and shit like that. Like Living Monstrosity is about like drug addiction and carrying on the drug addiction to like unborn babies. Altering the Future is about abortion. Spiritual Healing is about Chuck's distaste with religion at the time, especially with like televangelists and shit. Genetic Reconstruction was about the manipulation of cells at that time, like cloning. There's some really interesting lyrics and themes throughout the album that are very easy to figure out, very easy to get into. And the songs themselves are fucking classic. Living Monstrosity is one of my favorite Death songs. I especially love in the middle when it gets slow and heavy, where Chuck yells, "She's a stupid bitch!" And then Altering the Future has always been a favorite of mine. It's really slow and doomy and catchy. Defensive Personalities seems like a really good song on Leprosy. Within the Mind has some incredible lead guitar writing from James, and of course great riffs from Chuck. Another incredible song that's very, very heavy. And then you have Spiritual Healing, one of their best songs ever, their very first long song. And unlike every other long song that they've tried to do after this point that's just felt way too long and boring for no reason, this song is long because it's filled with riffs that are fucking incredible. They shoved as many fucking riffs as they could into this song, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. Every riff is amazing, especially the main first one. That is one of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard. Low Life is one of my favorite Death songs because this one's about Hitler, and I love Hitler, I'm just kidding. But the riffs are amazing. The middle section I already talked about, the lead breakdown is incredible, but I especially love that fucking chorus. It's really, really, really catchy for a death metal song. And the last song, Killing Spree, ends the album on the most insane song that they could conjure for this album. And even though it just sounds so refined and so polished, you can't get away from how heavy and dirty this song is. Especially like some of the really odd riffs that keep changing, especially in the chorus. Spiritual Healing is such an underrated album, such a fantastic album. I still don't get the fucking hate, and I'd still say that this is the absolute most recommendable, easy to get into genre definer of death metal, especially old school style death metal. I'm going to give Spiritual Healing a 10 out of 10.